Welcome back to the No-Fly Zone with Bob. Today we have the 3AF back on the bench. We need to fix something before we can actually hook this up to Betaflight. When I was... camera just shifted. I think we're all right. When I was working on this, I soldered up the F port from the XRSR to a RX pad. Well, turns out that F port is a half duplex protocol, which means that you need to actually connect it to a TX port. And for those unfamiliar with half duplex, basically it's kind of like being on a telephone call and only one party can talk at a time. So everyone listens until that one party talks, and then the other party talks, and it goes back and forth kind of like that. Anyway, that's how this works, and I need to switch it from the RX pad to the TX pad. I'm hoping that this camera is in focus and everyone can see that it is on the RX pad and not the TX pad, which is right next to it. So, before I do that, I need to get a new solder tip put on. I have this one from Adafruit. It's a Hakko official, but it doesn't look any different than one of the cheap Amazon ones I also have. So I think, yeah, it does have a bit more thermal mass. You know what? Maybe I'll give it a shot. That was a T18, and by the way, the iron is currently off. So it's pretty simple. For a Hakko 936, you just take this off, and then this tip slides right off like that. And this is a 2.5 millimeter tip, and it's kind of what I use just for just about everything, actually. And you can kind of feel the difference between a cheap light tip and a heavier tip, like this Hakko original. This actually feels like it weighs a bit more than this one. In fact, why don't we check that? That thermal mass is actually kind of important. It helps the iron stay hot. And let's see here. I'm guessing that this one is a couple grams, so that's 5.4 grams versus this one, which is probably 6. Yep. So this has got a bit more thermal mass to it, which means it'll stay hotter longer, won't wear out the iron as quick, that sort of thing. But the tip on this is very small, so the working area doesn't conduct as much heat into the material, and that's kind of what with this one you want to get on a flat and kind of, you know, work on it like that, versus this one you've just got this little tiny pad getting down on it. And this is for primarily designed for surface mount electronics and general S&D work. So I am going to try and solder this fix with the board in. We're just going to go for it. See if that works out. All right, so we've got that and that, and now we'll get this buttoned up and flip on. And let's see here. All right, we'll give this just a minute. I think I'll actually take the top off for this work, because I don't want to hit the hot iron against that top. It would, you know, it would not be a good idea. And we got a minute before it gets hot enough, so. Alright. And it'll also make it a little easier to see. At least I hope so. And I actually have another 4K camera, which I'm going to power on here. This is a cheapy EK7000. So maybe I can use it to get a couple of sort of close-up, this is what I'm doing shots. Okay, that's about all we're going to get out of that. So here I'm going to move this in like so. Click the record button so that it's actually recording. Flip it around and see if you can see just how small those little pads are down there. That's what I'm going to be working on there. Alright, and we'll see if I can set this up in such a way that it's visible while I do this. Trying something new here, people. Bear with me. Alright, so first things first, we're going to unsolder it from the RX pad. And the way we're going to do that is we're just going to put a little tension on this, and boom, done. RX pad has been desoldered. Now, I want to clean off that pad kind of as best as I can so that it doesn't interfere with my TX. Alright, and here we go. And by the way, I've got the iron set to about 400 degrees, and that's Celsius, or about 750 degrees Fahrenheit. And I find that works okay for these pads. Alright, there. Now I've got the TX10. It's labeled T3. Hopefully that won't be a problem. Shouldn't be anyway. Okay. I think I need to kind of maneuver this a little differently. Okay, we are over top of the pad, and I think we're on it. Yep, I think that's got it. Alright, that was an easy fix, fairly straightforward. So here's what we're looking at down here. We've got the T3 pad soldered up now, and now we're gonna just hit it with the multimeter. And we are doing continuity checking. Uh-oh. Are you dead on me? This thing has a brand new battery in it. I don't understand what's going on. Greenlee has never, ever had as many problems as when I try and use it on camera. Alright, good. That's good. Alright, now I'm connecting from the negative pad, the ground pad, to the TX pad, and I'm not getting any signal across there. So that's a good sign. So if we heard that, that's when we know, oh, we've got the pads bridged. And on these little pads, I mean, check them. Check everything. On the big pads, check them all. It does. It's peace of mind, right? So, and then I'm touching the TX pad now and the RX pad, and they are not lighting up, which is a good sign. That means that I've got good contact on the TX pad, and it is not bridged to another pad. All right, I think that fixes it. I think from this point forward, I think we're going to be working in Betaflight. So I'm going to switch over to using Betaflight and try and get this quad all set up, and we can go from there. So hopefully I'll be able to get OBS working and everything else, and it'll just work out. After due consideration, I've decided not to use this RXSR receiver from FreeSky it just requires jumping through too many hoops. Getting the F port to work, it requires connecting it to the remote or doing serial pass-through. And in order to do serial pass-through, you've got to have your S-Bus wire connected or your smart port wire connected. And, you know, it's just too much of a hassle. Honestly, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the way Crossfire has done it. And so I made a mistake, and I fully own up to it. And I am going to, well, that's empty. I am going to replace the XRSSR or what, RSXR. You know what? I can't even remember the name. Can't you just call it a receiver? Anyway, I'm going to replace the FreeSky receiver that I had originally decided to use with a Crossfire receiver, the TBS Crossfire Nano. And I believe this is the one with the Immortal L in it. So, but don't quote me on that. And then we'll go ahead and bind it to the Tyrannus. All right, let's set that over there and get this guy opened up and flip on the iron. Because after I filmed the last segment, I sat down and it was I read through Joshua Bardwell's tutorial. I read through the Oscar Liang's tutorial. I went through all of them, and I'm like, this seems like way too much trouble. Like, I plug this in, I give it power, and it's done, basically. It wants to bind, like, right out of the gate. Like, you go into the Lua script, and boom, it's done. It's so simple. So, that's what we're going to do. And we are going to get these guys out of the bag. Yeah, we're just going to wire it up almost exactly like we did the FreeSky. Except in this particular case, we are connecting the channel 1 to RX and channel 2 to TX, which is generally how I do it. I think the manuals, you can actually do it any way you want in the manual, because you can flip those pins around or something. Doesn't really matter. One way it is going to work. And I am embarrassed to admit that I did not do enough research on the RXSR before I made the jump to installing it in this quad. And so you get to see me eat crow and pull this guy out of here. So let's pull these out. Yep. And yep. Slide these pigtails out. And then we're going to, we've got this flat pointed tip, which you saw in the previous segment. And we'll go ahead and just wrench these guys off there one at a time with my trusty tweezers. And the itty bitty micro-sized pads. And that's one. And two. And three. And there it is. We can go reprogram that or do whatever we want now. Alright, let's see if I can clean up these pads real quick. Make sure it's in the framed appropriately. Alright. Alright, that looks pretty good. Now, we are going to take our XRSSR, or I'm sorry, our Crossfire. Crossfire, easy to say. Good job, PBS. You gave it a name. Alright. And I actually have a little itty bitty board holder. You just slide that back like so. And clamp the board in like that, and it holds it pretty secure. I mean, it's not like super secure or anything, but good enough to lay down some solder beads without messing up your brand new mat. We'll just make sure we got a good, nice clean tip to work with. And then we'll go in, and I actually have this upside down. That's all right. We'll put the wires on the... We'll put the wires on the top, because why be different? You know, stick to what you know. Which is a rule I should have followed when I set out on this build. But I thought, you know what? I'll be different. I'll be creative. Nope. Should have just done it the way I knew. There's one. And for the record, it is ground. The square pin is almost always ground. The early versions of the Nano, the like .0.1 version, double check everything because they swapped around the printing on the board, and so the PCB is laid out wrong. So if you, and you'll actually still find images of it on Google if you try and search for Nano wiring diagram. But this is the correct order is from the bind pin side. There is ground, then there's 5 volts, then there's channel 1 and channel 2 in that order. And I use usually channel 1, the yellow wire is the signal wire, because that's the one I care about the most. And then channel 2 is a white wire, because I don't care so much about that one. That's just telemetry, usually. There we go. Alright, there are my 4 wires for my receiver. Easy peasy. And this is an Immortal L configuration. So we have this grounded sheath here, okay, and then we have this is called a ground plane, and then we have the this particular length of unshielded cable, and this is the antenna portion, the active antenna portion, and it actually looks a little bit long for the 900 megahertz spectrum. I think it's supposed to be something like under 2 inches or something close to that. So, but if you're doing quarter wavelength stuff, but whatever they gave you is generally perfect. So I'm just going to run it like it is, and I will run this guy out this side sort of diagonally. That way I can still hit my bind button should I ever really need to, but not interfere with these guys. And that way I can put this like that and that out the back, and Bob's your uncle. So not me, but you know, the other guy. Where's my X-Acto? There it is. Bob's your uncle. I don't know where that frame came from. Okay. I like to cut these in half. Save the others, because inevitably you end up doing it wrong and have to, you know, resheathe your crossfire. So that's what I... Oh, where's my heat gun? My wife must have stolen my heat gun again. You know what? I don't need a heat gun for this. I do not need a heat gun at all, because I have a magic ingredient. Done. Yep, that'll be good enough. Should work like a champ. Did my wife steal my gun again? Okay, well, alright, and we don't have anything else left in this packet. Nope, everything's gone. We got these extra wires. I don't know why they give you these extras, but whatever. And now we need to figure out what length we want here. So we do not need this guy anymore. Take that back up, put that away. And we want to look here. So if we're going to hang it right about here, then we want, a little more than, that way we can take the top off. So right about here, somewhere in there anyway. Let's get all the wires to the same side. Yeah. And we'll just do that. Put this guy off right here. We are recording, right? Yeah, okay. And then we'll tin these guys up. Come on. All right. Now this is not the right tip for tinning wires, but it should work all right for these little itty bitty wires here. Again, this one's for surface mount, and I've still got the oh, come on, there we go. Still got it set to about 400 degrees. All right, so now to wire this guy in, let's make sure everyone can see. Make sure we got a nice, really clean tip here. And we're just going to go from this RX pad. Let me see if I can fire this little guy up. And get a shot. Here, like so. It looks like it's recording. Hopefully that doesn't look too bad. Alright, so we want it's RX, then TX, then ground, and then 5 volts. So we want the, so channel 1 out of this guy goes to, which is yellow, goes to the RX pad, which is the number 1 pad. And we will hold this like so. We'll use our tweezers to stick this guy down to this pad. We just need a little touch. And that is it. That is all you need for that little guy. And then we want this white one. Still see all that? Okay, I'm bumping this little camera around, but the TX pad is now, oh come on, tiny, tiny little pads. I think that one's good. And then we want the ground, yes. And we want 5 volt. And that should do it. Now, I am not at all comfortable that I got that right. on the first try. So let us see how it looks from a multimeter. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to touch the 5 volt and the ground together. And you can tell right away we have a bridge. Oh, hold on. I was touching this. I was touching this guy right here. On this outside edge, there's a grounding strap of some variety. I don't think we have a ground there. Alright, good. Or short, I should say. Nope, nothing between RX or ground and the TX. Now, TX and RX, do we have any continuity there? No, we do not. Oh, nope. Okay. We got solid contact on all of those. We're going to use a smoke stopper, nevertheless. And that smoke stopper's right here. And then there is this guy right here. And oh, looks green. Listen, don't overdo it. If you heard a pop or anything, just double check everything, but it looks good. Yep, my green light is flashing, means it's ready to be bound. So all I have to do now is bring out my controller and bind it. So we're going to fire up the Tyrannus. Let's see if I can move this into shot. And here, like so. Yes, yes, yes. And we're going to call this one the 3AF. So we will hold in this guy. Oh, no, exit. We'll do that and come down to model 8. I know Joshua says to do this differently. I name them after my models. Yeah, just it works better that way for me. Create model. It is a multi, and we'll do T. Channel 1 is fine. Oh, page. That's right. TRPY. So, yeah, that's TERA. Yeah, something like that. All right. Yep, long to confirm, and we are, yep, exit. We are going to go into this exit, and we will page. Sorry, not the most intuitive interface. And we'll call this one the 3A, long press for caps, F, long press. Alright, and then that's it, and we will exit and then go down to this where it talks about internal, and we want to change this to off. And then we want external, we want crossfire. Yep, and I think that's it. Yep. And now if we exit out, exit again, and go into, if we long press this and go page. So on the SD card that's installed in my radio, I have a crossfire, and then we went to crossfire.lua, hold long press execute, and now we see the XF micro. We want to put it into binding mode. And when we do this, we should see this little flashing light here, which hopefully everyone can see. That will eventually turn red and then flash a couple times at prompt long press to update the receiver. And now, in a few minutes or even less, we'll be done. I mean, that's why I use Crossfire, just because it's absurd that I mean, the XRSR is, or RXSR isn't, I'm sure is probably a fine receiver, but I mean, the Crossfire has a range that goes out like miles. And this, I'm not going to jump through hoops for an inferior piece of technology. I mean, it's too accommodating. That's really what it is. So it comes shipped with a firmware that supports legacy protocols right out of the bat, but doesn't support F-port right out of the bat. You got to go and load a new firmware on it, and we're done. Now, if I exit from this, I should see the XF Nano RX here, and we go in here, and everything looks good. We've got, if we give it a second, it updates slowly. So we've got mode is 8-channel, telemetry is on, and then if we go down a little further, we can say Crossfire transmitter output, receiver output, yep, and output 3. Is that it? That's all it's giving me? Okay. Oh yeah, channel 3. Yeah. So channel 1 is the transmitter, which goes to the RX. So TX goes to RX and RX goes to TX. So the channel 1 goes to my RX pad and channel 2 goes to my TX pad. So the flight controller can now fully talk to my Crossfire without any more configuration at this point. So I should be able to exit out of this, and if we were to go back to Betaflight at this point, we should see that this thing is pretty much ready to fly as it sits here. So we are one step closer now that we've got that done. All right, I think that's it. I'm going to go hook it up to Betaflight, and I'm going to get this thing configured with some modes, and then I'll show you that, and then we'll take this out and we'll maiden it. We will take it for a maiden voyage. So here I am doing just a basic hover test of the 3AF. Get it up in the air for a second just to make sure everything works. Everything seems to be working okay, and setting it down. Now, here I am taking it out FPV for the first time. Go down to the end of the block here, spin it around, and come right back. Just a simple test to make sure everything is flying good and that the OSD is working. It actually isn't at this point in time, but it's okay. Got it into the yard and went to set it down, but the wind kind of kicked it around a little bit, and so just went to go and land it, and that's it. Here I am just at the local school parking lot, just doing a quick fly around. This is all 4K video footage that I've dropped down to 1080, just because that's what everything else in this video is. And here I am, just barely keeping control. I'm still learning the up tilt on this new camera. I think I have it set at about 15 degrees, so it's a little wonky. But overall, the quad fly is pretty good. I don't see any major jello in the footage here. And this is just coming straight out of the RunCam hybrid. I haven't done anything here to clean it up. Here I am just going around and around a couple of times to kind of check the prop wash a little bit. I'm not throwing it around or anything. Not getting crazy with it. But yeah, seems to be flying pretty well. Back towards the school again, just passing through the trees. When I get down here towards the end, it starts to break up a little bit, so I climb just to get video signal back and then hug the school a little bit, just because the signal loss. I'm basically sitting over here in the parking lot and getting a bit of signal loss. And then again, dropping it down low, coming around the trees just to get a good feel for the quad. Seems to be handling pretty well. Just doing a couple of quick turns here on the grass just to see how the prop wash was. But Overall, I am really happy with how this quad turned out. Should be a nice little fun flyer, and it captures pretty good 4K video. Alright, I think that's it for this build.